Good morning. I'm Tiffani Bova, Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce. I'm excited to welcome you to Salesforce Live Series Pass, our monthly webcast to help leaders in the Salesforce community learn from the best practices in the business. Thank you all for joining us today. As we go through today's webcast, we'd love to engage and share your thoughts on social networks. Tweet your thoughts and ideas with hashtag Salesforce Live. You can also tweet me at Tiffani_Bova. I'd like to say a special thanks to our App Exchange partner, Sage, for partnering with us on this episode of Series Pass today. Sage has created a next-generation cloud accounting solution that empowers small and medium businesses to spend less time on low-value tasks and more time running their business. Today's focus is marketing that fuels spectacular business growth with a special discussion about how to make your business stand out while good marketing matters today more than ever, and how top brands are using customer experience as a competitive weapon. I'm delighted to welcome our special guest, Seth Godin. Seth is the author of 18 books that have been bestsellers around the world and have been translated into more than 35 languages. He writes about the post-industrial revolution, the way ideas spread, marketing being remarkable, leadership, and most of all, having the courage to change everything. You might be familiar with his books, Linchpin, Tribes, The Dip, and my personal favorite, Purple Cow. In addition to his writing and speaking, Seth founded both Yoyodyne and Squidoo. His blog, which Remarkable, you can find by just typing in Seth into Google, is one of the most popular in the world. He was inducted into the Direct Marketing Hall of Fame in 2013, one of 3 chosen for this honor. This is a full circle moment for me personally to have Seth on the Series Pass today. I first met Seth in 2002 when I read Purple Cow. At the time, I asked my entire sales and marketing team to read the book. We did a Purple Cow brainstorming session, and the simple yet profound lessons I frequently pull from even today. Ever since, he's been a great friend and a mentor to me. Welcome, Seth.
Thank you, Tiffani. It's good to see you.
It's great having you, really. It's just a pleasure. And what a fantastic time to have you on Series Pass when everyone's talking about sort of what's going on in the world of marketing and transition to digital, all the new tools and tricks that we have at our disposal. And I'd like to just kind of back up a bit and let's talk about kind of where we came from a marketing perspective. You've been doing this a long time. So from permission marketing to today, what do you think were the big tipping points, if you will, through each of those transitions to get us where we are?
You know, I'm not egomaniacal enough to think that I caused the whole world to change, but I was lucky enough to be in the right place to talk about how it was changing. It's important to understand that in 1965, when Mad Men supposedly happened, marketing and advertising were the same thing. That what it meant to be a marketer was to be an advertiser. And the reason is that TV ads were dramatically underpriced. If you just bought a lot of TV ads, you were going to make a profit. So all of the brands we grew up with, all of the famous brands in our lives, are not famous because they're better. They're famous because someone bought a lot of TV. And something started to change in the 90s when we started first with cable TV, eliminating the hegemony of the networks. And then, as of course, the internet and Sirius Radio, and then an unlimited number of radio stations, and then YouTube, and then this giant splintering. So you can't buy mass anymore. It's not for sale, and if it is, you can't afford it. At the same time that's going on, more and more marketers had figured out this trick of promoting themselves. And so there was an infinite number of choices. So if you go to a Starbucks, there's more than 19 million varieties of beverages you can choose from. That the number of movies that Netflix offers or the songs that iTunes offers, as we saw in the long tail, was more than all the products that weren't sold in the old days by the Blockbusters and the Tower Records of the world. So there's just this giant splintering. And then email shows up. And marketers say, great, our problems are solved. Because now we have a marketing medium that's free. So they started spamming everybody. And I built a company, Yoyodyne, that invented permission marketing, the idea of only emailing people who wanted to hear from you. So if you get commercial email today from a reputable company, that's because we were the people who figured out how to make that work. And I wrote a book about it to help us teach people what we were doing. Since then, I've been on this journey not just to talk about how companies are able to reach people, but given that we have this power, what should we do with it? Because each of us is more powerful than we have any idea.
And now I think from a marketing perspective in what you just said, right, we're more powerful. We have to be much more thoughtful and respectful of people's time because of this deluge of all this splintering of information. So as a marketer, what do you think the responsibility is as we enter into people's lives across multiple devices? You know, how we have to pay attention to what it is we're actually marketing and how much we may be invading someone's personal space, right?
That's right. I mean, attention, once it's gone, it's used up forever. So there are all of these circles of responsibility that what we used to be able to say is, well, the factory makes stuff and my job is to promote it. Leave me alone, I'm just doing my job. But what we're discovering is that when the factory fills the river with toxins, that's their responsibility. That when we sell a product that hurts someone, that's our responsibility. When we spam people, when we promise one thing and give another, when we put people into debt who can't possibly afford it, these are all our responsibility, our option, our choice. And the same thing is true in the way we deal with social media. That there are lots of ways to put link bait into your work. There are lots of ways to use listicles and to dumb things down. You'll get attention. But just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you're going to build an actual brand that we can trust. That this race for attention has a purpose. It's not just the person with the most attention wins. Attention must be coupled with trust. When you have attention and trust, then you can make connection and transaction. But if you're blowing the trust just to get attention, you're polluting the river we all drink from.
Yeah, and I think that trust is something that it's interesting to try to figure out how do you embed trust in everything that you do from a messaging standpoint, because sometimes it can sound not authentic, right? And all of a sudden it comes off as, I'm trying to sound trustworthy, but I kind of sound, you know, like I'm trying to pull some wool over your eyes, right? And so what's the balance between, I want to be perceived trustworthy.
Sure.
I want you to recognize me and see me, and I want to move this conversation forward. And so how do you balance the two?
One of the main reasons that people sound like they're trying to pull something over on people is because they are. That we say, well, my job is to sell X, so I'll say what I need to sell X. Whereas if we said, my job is to serve people, and if this isn't for them, fine. No one questions whether we're being trustworthy in those situations, right? That if this is what you do, if you're the crossing guard and someone might need help across the street, and if they don't, you say, fine, don't cross the street. That's okay. But if you're getting paid on commission to cross as many people across the street as possible, no wonder we don't trust you. Because you're not actually thinking about whether we want to cross the street. You're just counting how many people you can cross. So this goes down to my core message. It's up to you. It's not your boss's fault. It's not the shareholder's fault. It's not the CEO's fault. It's your fault.
As a marketer.
At some point, you've got to say, I'm not going to do that.
Yep.
At some point, you've got to say, oh, you're hiding the emissions data? I'm not going to run this ad. You figure out what you want to do, but this is my name on this work, and I'm not willing to be the person that lied to all of these people. Each of us is a media company now. Every single one of us owns our own version of NBC. You have more people, Tiffani, following you on Twitter than some TV shows got seen by yesterday. You personally. So what you put into this media channel is up to you. And you either put your name on it or you don't. And that decision was 40 years in coming, but it's here now. We have gone from this industrialized, corporatized, how do we yell at people mindset to one where real people selling real things to people who really want them, that is the foundation of our future.
And you think that it's the incentives maybe now that, you know, digital marketing has totally changed sort of the business, right? If you could say it's the 4 Ps, but it's so much more than that now, right? And so, you know, I think in a lot of the conversations I've had, when you start talking about how digital marketing is totally transforming the industry, I'm always fascinated by the fact that the metrics and the KPIs around marketing may actually be driving this bad behavior, right? Because it starts to be this volume versus value and quality, right? And it's quantity over quality. And so what about the incentives maybe within, you know, the marketing organizations? Should marketers who are listening today think about changing to get closer to trust?
I love this question. You know, the word transform has real meaning. and it's abused all the time. Because what most people do is they see a new medium come along and they say, great, I'll get to use that the same way I use the old medium. So, the internet comes along and travel agents say, great, a good way to promote my travel agency, without thinking about the fact that now travel agencies are gone. Because if you're hoarding information, the internet makes information spread. That's what transformation looks like. It destroys the perfect before it enables the impossible. So we have to think deeply about this. When I was at Yahoo, the homepage of Yahoo had an ad on it, and that banner ad was sold out 9 months in advance. Why? Because you could go to your boss and say, I bought the homepage of the internet. It didn't matter how much it cost. Didn't matter what the clicks were. It was like buying a TV ad.
Right.
TV ads are unmeasured. Do you know why? Because marketers don't like measuring. Because if you measure them, you got to say to your boss when something failed. So much better to say, look how cute everyone looks in this commercial, and move on. The transformation here is just beginning to be seen. It goes so much deeper. It means, for example, that if you're coming from a business that used to be all about a year-long cycle of invent it, make it, show it to the sales force, show it to the vendors, put it on TV, have it in the toy stores for Christmas, that 9 months is now 9 days. And the idea that a video for something like Goldie Blocks goes viral and 9 days later you have enough orders to tool up, totally turns the entire industry upside down. You can do that in every single business that we're used to. That cars, for example, are just beginning to change. That the idea that you don't need the dealer network and that you don't need the long cycles, et cetera, that you can make 20 million models of a single car, not 2 or 3, that the Edsel lost Ford $1 billion and was almost the end of the company. There will never be another Edsel again, ever. Because the way we make things, the way information flows, has transformed what we make, how we talk about it, how we sell it, who we sell it to. This is just beginning to happen, but the people who get the joke, who are using the cloud, who are using data, but mostly who are being human, these people are positioned for the future. If you're fighting a defensive action, it's not going to look good.
Yeah, and I think fighting the defensive action has a lot to do with being uncomfortable about failing.
That's right.
So, if I look in the rearview mirror and I see how other people failed, I can not do that, and I can have a better chance of succeeding. And I love your, conversation around there's two choices, right? You're either going to try and fail, or you're going to try and succeed. And why don't you talk a little bit about, as a marketer, you have to be comfortable with not just looking backwards, right, but being able and willing to try to fail.
Right.
But you also need management to let you fail. So
exactly.
Even if you're personally okay with failing, if management doesn't let you fail, you got a problem.
Right. So there's so much to dissect here. You and I were talking earlier about CMOs, and it's well known that the typical CMO lasts 18 months before she loses her job or before he loses his job. And it's well known that not too many CMOs become CEOs. Why is this? I think the reason is the job of the CMO is to make big promises to the CEO. The job of the CMO is to have this, CEOs understand how accounting works. They understand how manufacturing works. But no one's ever figured out how marketing works. It's all about changing people's minds. So you make these big promises, and it takes 1.5 years for people to realize they can't possibly come true. And so the churn happens. What we now know is that because you can outsource the manufacture of anything, because you can outsource all of your back office operations, everything is now marketing. Marketing is what we do. Figuring out what to make, bringing it to the right people, having it impact their lives. That's all we do. So if marketing is all we do, if your company is a marketing company, if the way you answer the phone or the side effects of your manufacturing process or your pricing are all marketing, and they are, we have to reconfigure what we do for a living as marketers. What we don't do is wait till it's done and run some ads. What we do is we organize people. We find the tribe. We connect the tribe. We listen to them. We tell stories that spread. And then we repeat the cycle again and again. It's not about finding people for our products. It's about finding products for our people. Turns everything upside down.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is there's this long-standing debate between, are you marketing-led, are you sales-led, are you product-led? And as you know, I bleed sales blood. So the marketing sales conversation is always a fun one because I think until you sell something, it doesn't matter. So you can market fantastic, but if you don't sell anything, it kind of doesn't matter. And so what are things that marketers now have to think about as they drive more of the journey, right? They're engaging and establishing trust and all of those things. And so the prospect, customer, new tribe member is coming on board. Salesperson or the sales process is changing dynamically, right? And that relationship between the two groups has to now be much more intertwined, which I think has not been historically a symbiotic relationship, if you will, right?
So now that information is available widely, instantly, and for free, what do salespeople do? I think they do one thing. They overcome fear. That if you know everything you need to know to buy something, you shouldn't need a salesperson. But you do, because you're afraid. Because you're afraid of making a mistake. Because you're afraid of buying the wrong item. Because you're afraid of overpaying. The salespeople are the magic human glue between the two things. Why are some things easier to sell than others? Because some customers are less afraid than others. Why are they less afraid? Because marketing has done its job. And marketing's job is a simple 7-word sentence. People like us do things like this. That if you understand that people like us buy cloud-based Salesforce software like this, it's way easier to say yes. If you understand that teenagers like us buy shoes like this, it's much easier to go buy a pair. That this idea of getting the tribe to clap in unison, that's what marketers do. And then salespeople need to be there in that last moment when someone is afraid, to teach them, to inform them, to console them, to encourage them to do that thing that makes them nervous, which is to say yes. People are afraid to say yes. Yes feels way riskier than no. And so salespeople are in the yes business. That this idea that Zig had of secrets of closing the sale, it actually should have been called secrets of opening the sale. Because it's opening the sale, engaging in the conversation that leads someone to their fear, that's the hard part.
And so salespeople now, you know, as they overcome fear in that, and I think it's a human thing too, right?
Yeah.
I think humans still want to buy from humans in many situations.
Oh, for sure.
And so marketers can only be so human in the advertising side of marketing. But with a lot of the social selling that's coming on board, right? You've got sellers who are now behaving like marketers in some way. Tweeting, blogging, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, whatever medium, YouTube, whatever, which I think from a scale perspective gets dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Because if they're not very trustworthy offline, they're definitely not going to be very trustworthy online. So how does marketing potentially help sellers be better in that marketing behavior that they may not have had the opportunity to do until technology is where it is today?
It all comes down to what story does the salesperson tell himself when he shows up at work every morning. That, as we talked about earlier, trust and awareness are the two key things here. So when social media shows up, some salespeople go, great, great, awareness, awareness, awareness. And they start tracking numbers that aren't necessarily relevant because they want to become mini celebrities in their field. But if they leave out the trust part, nothing happens. So I'll tell you, one of the very first book projects I ever did never got published. It was going to be a book on how to yo-yo, and it was going to come with a yo-yo. So I reached out to R.R. Donnelly and some other printers, and I said, I need a, quote, 196-page perfect-bound book, blah, 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 with one hole drilled in it. Usually there's 3 for a notebook. Yep. I want one hole drilled into it. So Beth Burns calls me on the phone, and she's the sales rep. I didn't know she was only 2 years older than me. I'm 24, she's 26. She says, what do you want one hole for? She didn't send me back a price quote. She said, what do you want one hole for? Let's have lunch. And we engaged with each other about her dreams, my dreams, and I bought lots and lots of printing from her over the years, and she's still a dear friend. That's a human being deciding to pave a pathway for someone else to move forward. That's totally different than aggressively tweeting what you had for lunch or talking about the fact that there's a selfie of you and the King of Spain. Because those things may help you with some awareness numbers, but they don't help you with trust, not in a world where 10,000 other people are tweeting a selfie with the King of Spain. That what we want isn't email, we want me-mail. What we want isn't to hear about you, we want to hear about us. We want to hear about our dreams, where we are going. And salespeople who get that who show up at work every day intent on making that happen, they don't have a social media problem.
Yeah, and I think when you look at salespeople today, especially selling technology, I actually believe that we don't sell products, we sell change.
Right, exactly.
And selling change, like, I want one hole, she came back and said, well, hold on a second, let's talk about it, because she wanted to understand the change you were trying to make in whatever it was you were doing, right? And not every sales rep has potentially that innate understanding of, I don't want to try to sell him the 3 holes, I want to understand why he wants the 1, because there's probably lots of opportunity for me here in the long run.
Exactly.
Right? Fair?
So you made a great point, though, technology. So these are reading glasses. 500 years ago, couldn't be bought anywhere on earth for any price. They hadn't been invented yet. So when they first came out, it was new technology. The salespeople for reading glasses were selling change. I'm going to change you from someone who can't read into someone who can. Now it's not technology, now it's fashion. There's no doubt glasses work. Glasses aren't, this newfangled thing. So what's the change? If I'm going to sell you glasses, I'm going to change you from someone who gets treated the way you get treated when you wear those glasses to someone who's going to get treated the way you get treated when you wear these glasses. It's a fashion statement. It's a change, not about the technology of its making, but what great marketers and great salespeople and great organizations do is only one thing. As Michael Schrage has written about, we make change happen. My favorite example of his is Harley Davidson. Harley turns disrespected outsiders into respected insiders. That's what they do. And they make half their revenue licensing their logo, because the logo, the totem, the uniform is a symbol of the change. You don't even have to have a motorcycle to be changed by the brand. So when we think about what we sell, when we sell technology, what we market when we market technology is, technology by definition is the new change. Is this going to change you into the person or the organization you seek to become?
Yeah, and I think when you bring up Harley Davidson, there's a great example of customer experience being the competitive battleground.
Right.
Right, because you could say that, people tattoo the Harley Davidson logo on their body.
Right.
There are other brands you would not ever potentially do that with.
Exactly.
Right? And so it has created a massive tribe. It's crosses borders and cultures and religions and everything. I mean, it is,
right?
It is an experience. And so as more businesses look to experience as a way to differentiate themselves and to really use your term, how to become remarkable,
right?
What are the things that both, from a marketing and sales perspective, that people can sort of do Monday morning, if you will, that gets them to start thinking experience and
exactly.
Tattoo my brand on your arm. Not really, maybe. But
this is a great point.
Yep.
And I wouldn't say not really. I would say definitely. So I get a bunch of email every day. And I got an email the other day from this woman. She says, I manage my husband's business. He's a carpenter. He works super hard. He's a really good carpenter. How do I make the business remarkable? So this woman and her husband want to bolt remarkable on like it's some sort of gimmick. They are not seeking to make a tattoo-worthy contribution to someone's life. But that's a choice. That there's nothing about any given business that makes it tattoo-worthy in its function. It's a choice. It's a choice to redefine what you do. So a burger at Shake Shack versus a burger at McDonald's. In a blind taste test, maybe you can tell a little bit of a difference. But Danny Meyer has made a choice with Shake Shack. Who he hires, how he hires them, how he trains them, where he puts the stores. Every single element of it is a choice, so that someone will say to somebody else, oh, we got to go to this place. You're going to have your mind blown. That we get to make those choices. My friend Michael Landau is the co-founder of Dry Bar. What do they do at Dry Bar? They don't even cut your hair. It's a blow dryer and a comb. So why are people spending $50 happily making reservations weeks in advance? Because he does something tattoo-worthy at Dry Bar. He identifies with your identity. He organizes a tribe, gives them something to talk about, takes it to the next step. This is available to people if they choose to go upstream and make decisions a week ago, a year ago, whatever. The best time to do that was 20 years ago.
Yep.
The second best time to do it is today.
Yep. And I'm going to quote one of your dear friends, Simon Sinek, right? It's about how you do things. And so that was a whole litany of how you do it versus sort of what you're doing, right? You're not just blow drying hair with a comb. It's how you do it, how people feel when they walk in, walk out, engage and experience your brand.
Right.
And it's that emotion that makes people spend a little bit more money, stay a little bit longer, and more importantly, tell their friends. Which, as Walt Disney says, that's the holy grail, right? Everybody telling friends.
And even though you and I have been talking about this for 5 minutes, people still haven't heard us because they think that's the soft stuff, right? It's the only stuff. The hard stuff's easy. The hard stuff's getting done by someone way cheaper than you, right? We're past the hard stuff for so many of the things that we've been seeking to build. And now we're only on to the soft stuff. That's it. That's all we got. So why aren't you giving it the top of mind attention it deserves?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to take just a quick little break here, and we are going to turn it over to Sage for a demo, and we'll turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hardin, Product Manager for Sage Live, and we're really excited to be here sharing with you our game-changing accounting app on the Salesforce Cloud. I want to walk you through this app as I'm a business owner. This app is really designed for small business owners that want to grow and accelerate their companies. So one of the things we've done is created the ability to see this business in real time, exactly where it's at and exactly what's happening in the moment as the transactions are taking place. So the power of this dashboard that we're looking at as a business owner is not only that I can see my revenue, my expenses in detail, but that I've got some indicators of what are the things that I should be paying attention to. So we're providing some business insight. And this is fully customizable, which I know is a word that we use a lot in business. But what this really means is we're saying you as the business owner tell us what makes you successful, and we'll make it easy for you to look at that in real time in a way that matters to you and that is easy to surface. Additionally, we're going to give you the ability to start centering the conversation in your business around the transactions that are the building blocks to your business. So instead of there being this wall that exists between the front office and the back office, we're really giving you the opportunity to not only see a transaction and know that it's happened from your mobile device, but as easy as checking your email, you're able to send messages between the people in the company to say, here's what's happening, here's why it's important, and it surfaces to you the same way that you're going to receive text messages, the same way, again, that you would check your email. So these are just a few of the powerful parts of how Sage Live is helping small to mid-sized business owners advance their businesses. If you're interested in learning more about Sage Live, please check us out on the App Exchange. And now we'll go back to Tiffani.
Great, thank you. Well, it's great to have Sage here. You know, they're an FTSE 100 company, but they still think like a startup. They've had a vision of combining sales, accounting, financial, and operational perspectives into a single connected office in the cloud. We were glad they saw that the Salesforce App Cloud as the place to build Sage Live. And now I'd like to just thank Nicole for being here with us today. And I'm going to jump back over to Seth and actually segue a little bit, because I think Sage has shown that a company that gets large, it was an entrepreneur startup, can still behave like one. And when you think about marketing, you know, you can always be scrappy, right? The guerrilla marketing of marketing, if you will, that of course was 30 years ago, I think by now at this point. That when companies are small, do you think it changes as they get to medium and to large, and they get as large as Sage did, you know, from a big 100 company?
Here's the hard part of growing a company, and one of the hard parts of marketing. Almost everything that happens in our head. The story we tell ourselves, the perception we have of how we want to be in the world. What kind of person goes to work for a small bureau of the United States government? What kind of person dreams of growing up to be, a bureaucrat in the Indian government? What kind of person wants to join a 25,000 person company? They're telling themselves a story. And often, the story they're telling themselves, and the one that the company is hiring for, is, this is stable.
Yep.
We will tell you what to do tomorrow. Please be a cog in our machine, because if you do that, you will get rewarded. So Henry Ford perfected this. Henry Ford said to workers in Detroit, I'll pay you a 10x raise, but you got to do what I say on the assembly line. And the assembly line worked so well, we grabbed it and we kept it. And it's in almost every company. And if any company goes public, Wall Street loves the assembly line because it's predictable and it's efficient. It gets more efficient. So you end up surrounded by people who say, well, we better not change anything because I'll get in trouble. We better not change anything because then we won't get the results we got yesterday. So it's no surprise that as companies get big, if that's who they hire, that's what they get. That the way to be the other kind of company is to push upstream and say, I'm sorry, you should go work for my competitor because we're hiring people who don't like working for big companies. We're hiring people who keep track of something different. And we're going to send a message to Wall Street, which is don't buy our stock if you're expecting that we're going to act like those guys, because that's not who we are. We're the people who are going to play by a fundamentally different set of rules. And it gets harder and harder to pull that off as you get bigger and bigger because of the mass of the people who are there. The same thing, it turns out, happens when you're an outbound marketer. If you are selling something to 5,000, 10,000 people, the early adopters, right, as we see it on Roger's adoption chart, those people want something new. But if you're selling to people in the middle, the masses, the bulk, they want something safe, something that works. So you can't mess with it, right? So if you look at somebody like Kodak. Kodak worked their way all the way through the curve. And their customers didn't say, please, please make us digital cameras. Their company said, could Ektachrome be 10 cents cheaper, please? That it better work the same way it worked yesterday. There's a story told about Kodak. Kodak got the patents on most of the digital technology that was necessary, never exploited it. And when they were right in the middle of that tough transition, a friend of mine was talking to the CEO, and he said, we can't get a little smaller because you see those 39 buildings out there? Each one of those buildings does one step in the making of film. And so you couldn't make each one of them half as busy, and you couldn't shut half of them because you needed all 39, all or nothing. That's the way big companies get big. They commit to a process. Marketers do the same thing because they're listening to the company. They say, well, we've got to ship a lot of stuff, so we need a lot of TV ads that run in a lot of places. Well, that's what they want, but it's not what we want. What we want, because technology, the mindset of what's new, has spread throughout our whole culture. What we want is solve my problem. Solve my problem a new way, a better way, an interesting way. Give me joy, give me meaning, give me connection. That's what consumers are paying for now. That's why in a survey of teenagers, they found the typical American teenager would rather have a smartphone than a car. That's impossible to imagine 40 years ago.
Yes, absolutely. And so those starting out in marketing, you know, I'm in my first job, and I maybe I even was lucky enough to graduate college, right, with a marketing degree in some form or fashion. What should I look for? What should I look for in where I want to go work?
I think the most important thing is who's your boss. Not what does your company do, not how fast growing is your company, who's your boss. Because what I say to people who say, how do I learn to do marketing, is the only way you learn marketing is by doing marketing. If you don't have that job yet, market on your own. Find a charity, don't even ask them, just market the charity. Make your own media. Figure out how to make people's minds change. You don't need a permit, you don't need a license, and you don't even need money. You can just market. So the goal, if you're just getting started, is find a boss who will let you do something. Not go to meetings, not take notes, not do what got done yesterday, but to do something, which means failing. Because all innovation is failing again and again until you figure out how to do it right. And I was so lucky when I was 23. David Cease saw me the day I showed up for my summer intern. He was the president of Spinnaker. No one told him that they had hired me. So I showed up, and he walked out and he welcomed me to the company, and he went back to his office and called the chairman of the board and said, who the hell is that guy? Because no one, and he just said, I'm going to let you spend the whole summer failing. And he kept pushing me to be on that edge. And in '83, that was difficult and expensive. Today, it's not. So that's what you need to do, because the doors are wide open. There's no advantage to being 50, no advantage to being 70 or even 30. It's, do you hear? Do you see? Can you speak? Those elements of being a human, that's what it is to be a marketer.
Okay, so that's my first leg of my career, first step in my journey. Now I'm a mid-level marketer and I'm feeling uninspired. And do I stay where I am? Do I go someplace else? I'm at the fork in the road.
Yes.
I want to be remarkable. I want to be challenged. I want to fail, but I work here.
So I love this question. We didn't practice any of these questions. You're doing
we didn't.
Great.
Thanks.
The number one thing people ask when I do my live Q&A things, sometimes they last 8 hours, is, I'd love to do that, but my boss won't let me. They have decided they are at that fork in the road. They want to do these things, but my boss won't let me. Well, of course she won't. Because you're going to your boss and you're saying, I want to do all these experiments, I want to do all these cool things. And if they don't work, it'll be your fault. But if they do work, I'll get the credit, okay? Well, who would say yes to that deal? That's a terrible deal. That what we know about the typical corporation is that they don't want to give you more authority, but they're eager for you to take more responsibility. And that for the person who eagerly takes responsibility and relentlessly gives away credit, there's almost always a wide open road. That if you're the person who's doing the small experiments, because no one's asking you to change everything, just little things. If you're doing the little things and taking responsibility when they fail and giving credit to your boss and other people when they succeed, there's going to be a line out your door of people who want you to do that with them, whether that means at a different company or your company. And this idea the boss won't let me, when was the last time your company fired somebody who took responsibility and gave away credit? I can't think of once.
All right, so that's the mid-level at the fork. I'm the CMO.
Right.
And I'm listening to this live webinar, or I'm listening to the replay. And I feel like I've been successful.
Sure.
But, I'd say even like you, your book started out being very sort of marketing related and educational and all of that. And I say a couple years ago, it sort of turned and you've been much more on this pay it forward, give back. Let's just all be better sort of citizens of the world. And I think CMOs and executives, when they reach that level, feel that same sense of responsibility.
Right.
So I'm a CMO and I'm getting ready potentially to know that I'm going to be retiring soon. How do you make the last couple of years matter?
So the pivot that you're talking about in my books isn't as clear as I think you might think, because they're still marketing books. Because what I discovered is that people who were stumbling weren't stumbling because they didn't know how to do SEO, because they didn't know how to do some marketing technique. They were stumbling because they couldn't make the key decision. And the key decision was to matter. So Beth Comstock's one of the great CMOs in America. She works at GE. Beth spends most of her time doing things that no CMO in the world did 10 years ago. She spends most of her time teaching and learning and connecting and understanding and exploring. And yes, the people who work with her would miss her if she was gone. That this idea that we are not industrializing these institutions, that's not where the next zero comes from ever. What we are doing is humanizing them. And that what you get to do is, if you want to go join an ashram, go ahead, that's fine. But really what you do is you create meaning for people. And what it takes to create meaning has fundamentally changed. It's not about a bigger end cap at the A&P. Oh, they're bankrupt. It's about something other than that now.
Right.
And the CMO is in a position where she can lead us by speaking up and saying, no, we're not going to do yet another knockoff of our own stuff. We're going to do this thing that's going to make people gasp and going to make people talk about it. We have the tools, we have the leverage, we can afford it, and it's worth it. Will it pay off at the same cycle as it used to pay off 20 years ago? No. But if you can get me one of those cycles, bring it on, because there aren't any.
Right.
So we're going to have to do that other thing now. And it means destroying the perfect so we can enable the impossible.
Well, this has been fantastic. Thanks to Seth, thanks to Sage and our viewers. And, just personally, it's been just such an honor to have you here.
It's great to
This
know.
recording will be live at seriespass.com within an hour, so please share with your colleagues. Send it out to your tribe. Mark your calendar for July 27th when Vala Offshore will welcome Whitney Johnson and Kara Anderson. Whitney's great on disrupting yourself as they discuss why disruptive companies and ideas upend markets by doing something truly different. How quotability experts say more by saying less. and how women in leadership and technical roles will increasingly build our futures. Thank you so much, everybody. Goodbye, and thanks again for joining us. Have a great day.
Be seeing you.
Thank you, my friend.
Well done. That was fun.